So as a friend of mine says, first things first, a shout out to Karen over the hill in Lafayette, who made me some chicken soup. That's the best chicken soup that I've ever had and is rapidly accelerating my return to well-being. Thank you. Appreciate that. And just a brief thought from my current experience, and I hope it stimulates thought or encouragement for you. That is, I've been sort of buried indoors for a couple of days like we do. And yesterday I did get out all the way out in the front yard to water my plants. They were quite thirsty. It hasn't been really hot, but it warms up on these days. And there's some new plants out in front on Pleasant Hill Road, some brand new crepe myrtles, relatively new. And they've put in some roots, but they're probably not that deep. And so they were looking a little crabby about the heat, as were some other plants. So I started to water them, and then I realized each of these different plants in my front yard has a different degree of development of their root system. Some are relatively brand new, and if they don't get watered, they're going to die. They're just not going to make it. They don't have a sufficiently developed root system. Others have partially developed root systems, and they could go a pretty long time, and they found sources of water other than being externally watered, I guess you might say. I planted a crepe myrtle tree in my front yard a little over a year ago, and I was almost going to rip it out, but a couple months ago it finally blossomed. And he or she is doing. Do trees have gender? He or she is doing really well, but still has a stick attached. If I were to remove the stick on that tree, it would just fall over immediately. In 10 years, you probably could drive a car into that tree, and the car would give, but the tree wouldn't. So root systems, right? And in my front yard, there is one giant pine tree, and that tree just is fine whether I water it or not. And it is obviously has root systems that probably go down dozens, scores, hundreds of feet. I don't know. I'm not an arborist, but the tree is not concerned about the daily condition of watering. And it's the same with us, is it not? If we've just put in a shallow root system and our roots only attach to a couple of sources of water, like say we attach a rather shallow root to our job or our reputation or our body or our belief system or our money or something, it doesn't take much for that one thing to dry up and really leave us in a very, very dire circumstance. So if our root systems are shallow, if our spiritual seeking is insufficient or undeveloped, and the thing that we are depending on goes away, we're really left with one of two situations. We either wither and die, and frankly, that happens all the time, or it creates a stress and a strain to dig deeper, to find that which is more sustainable, gives a more perfect supply. Ultimately, and this reminded me of a line from the New Testament. And for my Jewish friends, I do refer to the Old Testament a lot, but there's a part in the Bible where Jesus meets a woman at a well, and they're talking about, Jesus wants a drink of water, and she says, "Why are you talking to me? We don't, some Samaritans and Jews don't talk." And Jesus said, "If you knew who I was, you'd give me some water, because what I have for you is something called living water." What the heck is living water? Isn't that just sententious, ridiculous spiritual platitude? But living water is what the pine tree has found, so to speak. It doesn't depend upon the daily supply by something external. It goes so deep that it can't be shaken. And when you meditate and you go through the trials and tribulations of life, and one of your root systems fails, as it inevitably will, because we're designed to find the living water, then we find ourselves in a situation where we'll either dig deeper and find that refreshment that will never give way, that will never dry up, that will never let us down. It's the one thing we would take to a desert island if we were going, to the exclusion of all else. So congratulations on being a seeker for this living water, this refreshment that's available all the time, that's not dependent upon the vicissitudes and vagaries of life, the ebb and flow of things. So I'm glad you watered yourself today, and keep on doing it. And we'll continue this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow.